Now, the Washington Post is reporting that some sources in the transition team for Donald Trump are saying things aren't going as according to plan. They've interviewed potential candidates, they've done some looking into people to fill varying positions, qualified people, and Donald Trump is going off that script. He is not picking the people the transition team want. He's picking, anybody who he thinks looks good in an interview, makes him sound good, would pat him on the back and tell him he's a genius. Those kind of things. That's how he ends up picking people like uh, Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, and RFK Jr. For Health and Human Services. Now, some of these candidates are not going to make it through the confirmation process, but the transition team had other people in mind, qualified people for those picks. So now it'll be interesting to see if, when the Senate rejects these people, if Donald Trump goes off the rails, tries to pick somebody even worse, rants and raves, or if he backtracks and listens to um, the people around him and picks somebody that the Senate would approve of. Odds are he's going to go off the rails. He's going to rant and rave, and try to get his picks through. Anyway, I know one of the things he wants to try to do is do recess appointments, and I've talked about it in numerous videos. Uh, the only way a recess appointment works is if Congress actually adjourns for a length of time longer than 3 days, and they haven't adjourned since like 2014. They keep taking these 3 day breaks, and then every 3 days they have what's called a pro forma session. One member stays back and basically goes, okay, we assume everybody's here. If nobody objects, we'll be back in 3 days. That's what they do. It's a way to get around recess appointments because, as I've talked about, politicians like power. And Congress doesn't like yielding any power that they can to any of the other branches, which is why um, they don't want to yield the power of appointments to the president through recess. So if they don't go to recess, president can't appoint anybody and as long as they stay at under that 3 day window, he can't appoint anybody. And, they're not going to risk that because they know they got to get reelected. They're also not going to rubber stamp some of his crazier picks, the ones that he's just going off the rails with by picking people like Matt Gaetz and RFK Jr. Senate Republicans are not going to pick some of these people. Now, there will be some that will vote for him, but there's not going to be enough to get them through. Why? Because they know they have to go back and get reelected. And if they put these completely incompetent people in certain positions, their voters aren't going to re-vote for them. It's going to be a struggle. They have to justify it to their voting base, and that's just not going to happen. So Donald Trump taking things off the rails. We'll see how he reacts when he doesn't get his way with the Senate. But it looks like the Senate's going to safeguard him from some of the picks, and the qualified people around him are going to have to try to steer him back on track to pick more qualified people.